Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all had a good lunch, or if you're still eating lunch, that's great too. Really excited to introduce this next panel. My name is Tal. I'm a first-year MBA student at Sloan, part of the organizing team for this whole weekend. Our session today is sponsored by Kager, known as Craft Analytics Group. They're sponsoring all of the competitive advantage talks. And it's my pleasure to introduce the presentation, The Golden State Warriors Global Fan Engagement and Growth Strategy. Our speaker today is Jen Millett, Chief Marketing Officer at the Golden State Warriors. So with that, Jen, come on up.
Thank you. Grab that. Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending your lunch hour with me, and please feel free to eat. I would if I were in your seat as well. So I'm happy to be here today to talk to you about, as Tal mentioned, our growth, our engagement, and really also our monetization strategy for the Golden State Warriors. So with that, I'm going to start off with a quick video. So that's sort of a view into our fans in their most engaged environment, Chase Center. But we have full knowledge that a lot of our fans across the globe will never step foot in Chase Center. So the strategies that I'm going to talk about today that the marketing team and the business overall are focused on is how we engage and grow that global audience, how we maximize the revenue opportunities with them. And then the last piece is really about how we bring these fans directly into our database. And this next slide is really just a deep dive into why that last strategy has really risen as a priority for us over the last year. So as you look across these platforms and the audiences that exist there, first thing to note is obviously these are not unique numbers when we talk about our TV audience and our social audience. There's a lot of redundancy and duplication across these platforms, but also within them. But the big takeaway for us as we look at this is the acknowledgement that the two platforms that are the largest sit outside our universe, meaning that we are reliant on third parties to really reach these audiences. And while all of them are great partners to us, there's just a disadvantage in terms of having to leverage a third party to reach your audience. And when you think about that, for instance, with our social following, one change to Instagram's algorithm could severely damage our ability to reach that audience. Or say the US government comes in and says, you know what, TikTok's gone, or at least on hiatus, right? That's an audience that, we cannot go out and talk to. And the same is true to a certain extent with our RSN, right? Great partner, but should we, undertake a content series that we want to put in front of an audience that we feel like, really would value what we're building, we're reliant on them. And so as we talk about some of the strategies, one of them for us is really about how we bring all of these users directly onto our platform. And there's three platforms that I'm going to talk about today as it pertains to growth, engagement, monetization, and this last piece around really pulling people into our universe directly. So it's broadcast, social media, and our mobile application. So we'll start with broadcast. So we have a great broadcast story to tell. Championships help, Stephen Curry helps, but we, for the last year, have ranked #1 in terms of our audience reach of our local broadcasts. And we're most proud about this when you look at the fact that we're the 6th largest EMA, so we're punching above our weight when it comes to the audience we're able to attract for our games.
The Warrior Shop item of the game presented by Rakuten. Save 30%.
There you go.
With the code IOTG30 at shop.warriors.com.
Yeah.
It's off all the pro standard gear. Well done.
Walker is a pretty good rebounder.
So there are a few things that are pretty obvious about how we're monetizing our audience when it comes to broadcast. So in that spot. So the first is the retail offer, right? We're sort of doing a direct call to action, come and buy something from us. The second is the sponsor element that you see, right? Attaching Rakuten to that, giving them some support and promotion. But the third intent around those live reads is bringing that audience directly to us. So we're incentivizing audiences through our broadcast to come to us, sign up, receive an offer for retail, receive a pre-sale opportunity for something like playoffs or concerts. And the last piece really around that is just trying to, the last piece from an engagement perspective is offering them something like a unique fan experience. So, sign up with us and be invited to a chalk talk with a player or a coach. So those are elements that, again, we're really focused on bringing that audience to us, continuing that monetization conversation. Over the last year, we have partnered with RSN, like a lot of teams across the league have done, to bring in virtual logos. And we feel like virtual signage within game broadcasts is going to continue to innovate as we've seen broadcasts innovate and the opportunities that exist there. So virtual logos has been a key strategy for us in the last year. So we're monetizing that. And then obviously, everything else within that broadcast that we would at this point call traditional, right? Traditional sponsor opportunities. But the fact that our RSN ratings are so high for games, we're really able to maximize this. So now let's talk a little bit about social media. So I've been fortunate. I've been at the Warriors for 5 years, and a lot of work was done prior to my arrival around building a followership, but also really focusing on the engagement of that followership and curating and cultivating that audience. And the results of those efforts have really paid off for us. So we have a very strong domestic social strategy and a very high engagement rate amongst this audience. And the team is very protective of this audience and of this engagement rate. And I say that because obviously, when we talk about sponsor opportunities and monetizing that audience, those two things could, in some instances, clash. But we've done a lot of work with our corporate partnerships team, with our partners around aligning sponsor opportunities that are contextually relevant for fans. So you see Google Cloud is the presenting sponsor of our player of the game, right? That brings in the stats of that night. It makes sense for them as a brand, and it makes sense for our audience when they're consuming that content. The same is true of our partnership with United and their sponsorship of our arrivals and departures, right? Obvious one. And it's obvious for fans too. And I would say these opportunities over the last few years have really grown. Our digital revenue has almost doubled in size as it pertains to bringing together partners with content that makes sense for them. Now, I will say there's obviously a need of our partners sometimes to make a more direct call to action when it comes to what they're trying to do for their brands. Oops, sorry. And so when we think about that over the last, again, few years, we've really pivoted and pulled partners into these paid social opportunities. And there's a lot of wins around bringing partners into a paid social strategy. Obviously for them, we're able to target the message to a specific demographic. We're able to target a specific geography. We're able to provide more detailed reporting. And when I get back to, again, this initiative that the social team has for us, we're able to preserve the integrity of our engagement rate. And this has become, much like the organic social piece, a real growth for us from a digital revenue perspective. And the last thing I'll say, I don't have this on the slide, but when I talk about pulling people directly into our universe, we'll use paid social as a lever to try and drive people into our mobile app. So we'll push paid against that to try and bring people directly to us as well. And when we think about social as a growth vehicle for us, really, it continues to be that on the domestic, but the real opportunity we see is internationally. And so we have invested a lot of energy, a lot of resources in building out a social following in China across all domestic sort of platforms within China. And so when I say resources, we have 2 dedicated full-time headcount that are Mandarin and Cantonese speaking that build all the editorial content, that build the post strategy, that really drive this initiative. And again, we've seen tremendous growth and engagement within our audiences in China. And this is just one of the many platforms that were active. And then in the last year, we took a step that, again, lots of other teams have done to launch native Japanese language handles on Twitter and Instagram. And there were 2 things that really led to this push for us. One was we re-signed Rakuten as our badge partner, Japanese company, great partner, great brand in Japan. And the second was our presence at the Global Games in the preseason of this year. So we knew we had an opportunity there to have boots on the ground. We knew we had an audience that was going to engage with us. And we wanted to give them a touch point for our brand even after we left. And so this channel launched in, I believe, July of 2022, and we've continued to see growth and engagement, obviously peaking more in Japan, but still growing over time. And from a resource perspective, again, we've added a dedicated headcount to support this initiative. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about our mobile application and what we're doing in that space. So we launched our mobile app in 2019 when we opened Chase Center. Coincidentally, we closed Chase Center in 2020 about 6 months later. But at the time, when we were building out the feature set and we were building out the product roadmap, we were very focused on the local in-market fan experience and to some extent specifically focused on the in-venue experience. And so you'll see, the images on the slide are really around wayfinding around the building, in-seat mobile ordering opportunities, in-app ticketing support, and mobile ticketing. And we also saw this again as a monetization opportunity, so attaching contextually relevant partners to content and features that existed. So you can sort of see it's a little bit small, but DoorDash has come on board as our mobile ordering sponsor. And that experience, really exists, mobile ordering through DoorDash at Chase Center. But, so this is sort of 2019, we're out the door, pandemic comes, and we realize a lot of things we built people weren't gonna be able to use because they weren't in the building, they were in market, they were watching our games. And so what started really as an initiative to maintain this engagement with fans by creating game mode, so it's a second screen experience. We knew fans were still gonna tune in once games resumed, and we wanted them to have a connection with us and engage with them. And so we built this game mode experience, which really flips over and allows fans to partake in trivia, in polls, win prizes, and also brings them in to authenticate, to actually sign up when they're using our app. And so something that started as a result, of the pandemic, which serendipitously really brought our attention to the fact that we were seeing international audiences also gravitate towards this, and out-of-market fans, outside the Bay Area gravitate toward this. And we really realized there's an opportunity here to serve an out-of-market fan in the mobile app and have that be a place where they're coming to get information about the team, to get content around the team, to engage with us as a brand. And so the mobile team right now is really focused on how we build on that momentum. And that is, again, this next piece is really around vertical video. So this is something that they're looking to build into the app. Probably you'll see in the next few weeks. And again, this isn't like a groundbreaking thing, but when you think about vertical video, you realize that this is how our fans are consuming media. And if we want to be the place where they come first, which in a lot of sense we do, how are we going to make that environment inviting for them? And vertical video is a big piece of that. And so that's a feature set, again, that we're focused on and that we're building to try and pull these people, not necessarily off social platforms, but plus. And with that, well, it's going to play through. So as we think about the future, I know folks might have questions, but I also have questions too, and a lot of these are the questions that we're asking ourselves that I'll share with you, which is, how are we going to evolve our broadcast experience over time? A lot of teams have started to invest in this space. The Clippers, have done a great job of that. I think we just saw yesterday that MSG will be rolling out their own platform. So the broadcast experience will evolve. It needs to, right? Because we understand that younger fans just consume media differently. And so we're paying attention to that and thinking about, how we partner with our RSN right now to deliver an experience that's going to be engaging for them. We're leveraging our corporate partnership team in a lot of ways to expand our brand footprint. And so this relationship with our corporate partnership team and marketing, it really works both ways. In some instances, we're sending the signals to them, right? We're sort of saying, wow, we're seeing a growing audience in Brazil. You guys should look to that market potentially and see if there's a partner there that might make sense because we have something of value to offer them. But it also works in the reverse, right? We can lean on partners like Rakuten to build our brand in countries. And so when the team is really looking at what their opportunities are on a global basis, we're sitting side by side at the table trying to maximize not just the opportunity for that partner, but how is our brand going to show up in the universe where that partner might be. And so that's an ongoing effort. And I think, in the next year, you'll see us venture into new spaces and places there. And then the last piece, which again, I know is something that a lot of teams are thinking about and challenging themselves with right now, which is really about how do we innovate our direct-to-consumer product offering for these out-of-market fans. So when you think about our direct-to-consumer retail opportunity right now at the team level, it's two things. It's retail, which globally, sure, we can sort of scale up and operationalize that better and sell more merchandise to fans on a global scale. And the second is tickets, right? And that really isn't going to be applicable to an out-of-market fan. So we have, over 50 million fans across the globe, but I have nothing to sell them. So, and how are we going to innovate and deliver a product that is going to be meaningful, that's going to deliver value to them, that they're going to pay for? And again, I know teams have done work in this space. I've seen fan club models, I've seen content models. All of those are things we're thinking about. But we really want to get to the next level and make sure, not only that we're engaging and growing our brand in these places, but that we're able to monetize that audience in a meaningful way and give them a direct connection to our brand. So I think that is my last slide. And now we will go to questions. I nailed it on timing, by the way.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah.
Amazing. If you have questions, please raise your hand. We'll try to pass the microphone to you, but it's up to Jen on who she
Oh
calls
yeah,
on.
right here. It's sort of bright too, so it might even stand up and wave. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the time. When you first took over in your role here with the Warriors to where you are now, and I think you may have touched on it with the digital opportunities, can you kind of talk about some of the differences from the beginning of your job to kind of where you are today?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think my background is in consumer product tech, so this is my first job in sports. And my approach to the business coming in was very different, I think, than any predecessor that had been in the role, in that marketing a lot of the times was a service center for the rest of the business. So it would be like, oh, we need creative assets built, or we need to help with an activation or event. And a lot of it was sort of this model of sales is growth and marketing is in support of sales. And I'm not saying that it was always like this negative push down, but I think in taking the role, one of the biggest shifts I realized was like, okay, we have to change that dynamic for the better of all of us. And marketing should be a strategic thought leader at the table. So that was sort of a shift. And I think at a more like tactical level, the biggest shift over time has just been this investment in lifecycle marketing and really having the right dedicated resources to run a lifecycle resources and marketing tech stack, I would say, to support a robust sort of customer segmentation program, a robust sort of lifecycle email campaign program, push notification. And so those were things at the time when I came in that were being run by, I would just call marketing generalists, that were sort of like, I'm running the paid search ads and I'm also ordering the bobbleheads. And it was like, what? And that has shifted a bunch over the last 5 years for sure.
Hi, yeah, thank you for the talk. I'm just curious, to your knowledge, how much did the transition from Oracle to Chase contribute to sort of the appeal to consumer attraction and just overall expanding your audience? Or in general, how much does investment in like real estate or infrastructure contribute to the fan experience as well?
Yeah, I think the one big, there's a number of wins for us in sort of making that move just from a business model perspective. In terms of like, it's not just the building itself, but sort of being a landlord and getting, which at the time was a good idea, retail rental revenue and things like that was key. But I think the other big drive for Joe and Peter in terms of making this transition and bringing the team back to San Francisco was around, again, this idea of owning our own destiny. And stemming from when we were at Oracle, amazing building, amazing memories there, but it's an older building. And when we would do fan surveys and get fan feedback about their experiences, most of it related to the stage of the building in terms of like your ability to, the in-arena food ordering, the parking situation, all of those elements. It just felt like fans were paying a premium price for the ticket, but the building itself really wasn't a premium space. And the thing was, fans didn't differentiate between us and the building. It's sort of like, you're at a game and we own that. And in a lot of instances we didn't, right? We were relying on a third-party partner to deliver the experience. And so that has been a big boost. When we do our like fan season ticket member surveys now, those scores are like 20% higher than where they were. So that's been a big win for us.
Perfect. I think we have time for one more.
Thank you, and thanks again for the time. I was really interested about your international expansion. I'm with the USTA, US Open, and so I was curious, how do you prioritize what markets you go internationally? And further to that, how do you sort of determine the runway on when you recoup that investment?
Yeah, it's a little bit chicken or the egg. So I think with our Japanese handles, for on Twitter and on Instagram, on Instagram in particular, we were able to sort of see there was an audience there. it's interesting across the league. Some teams, obviously, you have a player who's from a country, and so you'll start to see on your, domestic handles activity. Some people, it's geography based. So I know I saw a presentation by the Spurs where, they were seeing a lot of activity on their socials originating from Mexico, and so they were sort of domestically like, oh, this could be interesting. So for us, it was really about, the Japanese piece in particular was really about, all right, we're seeing some activity. We knew we were going there, and we knew we had Rakuten. So those were sort of our signals. In some instances, we do rely and would rely on our partnership team to lead the way. So if they go into, I keep naming Brazil, but I'm not like teasing anything. I don't know who they're talking to. But if we started to see a bunch of activity, they had a brand there, we would sort of double down in that space. And I think China has always just been a market for NBA teams and the league itself. And so there's no like perfect equation. It's sort of just like a confluence of like signals that we're like, okay, this could be an opportunity, and some of it might just be like criteria setting, like, all right, what's going to be the defining thing that's going to lead us to make that push. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Jen.
Thank you.